What is up, guys? It's your boy P-Raheem coming at you with the second C# tutorial, and today we're getting into variables and if statements. So without further ado, let's just go hop right into it. We're at 3 levels of Todd Coons and we're ready to get going. So variables are used when you want to store information. We allow words and symbols such as x or num times Coons has eaten pants to represent data. So x can represent an integer or a double or a string or some boolean value, and so can any line of characters that we want to set equal to something else. And that helps a lot with storing information, for collecting information and putting it somewhere, and being able to change that and manipulate it as we want. And so that's why we create variables. The different data types that are inherent, or I guess considered primitive data types, will be integers, doubles, strings, and booleans. Integers are whole numbers, so that includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to some really big number that is set to be in C#, and that includes 0, and also any negative number. You can have negative integers just fine. When you want to have decimals like 1.5 or 3.14 or something like that, you need to do a double. So a double basically means a number with a decimal. String, if you want to save characters like bottom text to something that you can manipulate and save, they're saved as string. So a string is a set of characters pretty much. And then finally we have booleans. You can have variables represent the ideas of true and false, and then these can be changed through interactions with your program, and then therefore change how things operate. So those are the different levels of variables, and what we're going to do is we're just going to hop right back into our Visual Studio, and here I have already a little template program that I've made. If you can go back and watch the knowing your way around Visual Studio and understanding buttons and text boxes and things like that, if you're confused on what you're looking at. But basically I have a button called let's see, button add, and it just says more sauce right now. I have a label up here called this label title. It's gonna say the sauce, and I have a text field right here, and we're gonna use this to display some information to our user. So the first thing we're gonna want to do is define what we want to do with our program, and basically what I want to happen is every time I click more sauce, I want a number in here to go up. So we're increasing the amount of sauce we have, and then I want the word sauce to come right after it, so that we have units, because you're going to fail any math exam you ever take if you don't have units. So always pay attention to those, and we're gonna go ahead and get right into it. So we'll create our button method by clicking on it. Now we're in button add. This is a code that's gonna execute whenever the user clicks on the button called button add that we've set to display the word more sauce. So outside of the button itself, we're gonna come here, and this is just an area where you can write information that just starts to default with your form, right? So we're gonna declare an integer, so we're gonna say int, let's just go x equals 0. So we have our integer x equal to 0. Alright, and what we're going to do is we're going to tell our code, we'll do this in a few steps, but this button add, what it's going to do is it's going to keep incrementing this x. It's going to, every time we click it, we want to make x go up. Then we click it again, x is going to go up again. Then we click this button again, and x is going to go up again. And after every time it goes up, right after that, we're going to say we want this text field to display the value of x, right? So let's just go ahead and display the value of x by default, because we know we're going to have to do that at the end of every time it gets clicked anyway. So we'll do text result, that's what I named our text field, dot text equals x. Right, and let's see if that works. We may have to convert it. Looks like we do, because x is an integer and text is a string field, right? So we'll do convert dot to string. Where's our to string? To string x. Now we have our number, which is an integer, right? And it's converting to a string and then displaying it in the text field. So we'll actually go ahead and just run our program for the first time. Eventually, please don't crash. Alright, now it says nothing on here because we didn't set in our code for it to automatically display anything. We just defined some variable x is equal to 0. That's in the background right now. But when we click button add, it should set this text field equal to x. And it looks like it did. We got 0. Alright, so that's working. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can actually increment it. So every time the button gets clicked, let's increment x. And one way to do that is we do x plus plus, the variable name plus plus. And that basically, obviously this is the variable we're working with. And plus plus is a quick way of doing go up by 1. CSharp understands plus plus as add 1 to this. You can also do plus equals 1, and you can do x equals x plus 1. This is just a quick and easy way to do it. So now, it starts off as 1, right? Because the first thing we did was incremented 0 to 1, and then we displayed 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Go all the way as much as we want. How fast can we do this thing? Oh yeah, rapid fire. There we go. 51 sauce. But it's not saying sauce. We don't know what that is. So what we can do is in here, we can just do plus in quotes sauce. Alright. But in order to demonstrate how string variables work, we're not going to do that easy route. What we're going to do is do an example of what we would do if we had some variable representing it. So that way, in that case, if we wanted to, we could change what that variable said. So we'll do string. Probably not, don't use text or anything like that because you'll confuse yourself with other properties. String y. Let's do string z equals sauce. And then we can do this plus this. Alright, so now we have the number plus z, which is equal to the word sauce. Just get rid of that, and what I'm going to do here is just add another thing, and we'll do quote space quote, and that just is a little shortcut of making a space so it doesn't say 9z or 9 sauce, it says 9 space sauce, and so it just looks a little bit better. So we'll start it, and then boom, more sauce. We got 1 sauce, 2 sauce, 3 sauce, 4 sauce, 5 sauce, and keep going up, 10 sauce. Ooh, look at all this sauce we got here. So that is your quick run through of variables. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get into if statements. If statements are essentially areas of code that will only execute if some condition is met. So we will say if yada yada yada, like it's like if x is equal to this, or if user has done this, or if I'm feeling like it, do this. Stuff like that. If the condition is not met, the code isn't even touched. You don't do anything that's within that if statement, you just skip right on to whatever is next, which could be another if statement, or in some cases an else if. So you'd use else if statements if the first if statement is not met. You can use an else if, and basically check the next one beyond that, and it would execute that one. And you can do else if statements in conjunction too. So, and the way those work is if the if statement before it is met, then the else if statement will be executed because it already met one of your conditions that you were trying to do. And another thing you can do with if statements is you can nest them. So nesting is placing an if statement within an if statement. You got ifception. And they're really not all that difficult to get a hold of. It's really just conditions you're trying to meet and setting up some logic and control flow with how you want your program to run. So without further ado, we'll hop right back into Visual Studio, back into our sauce program here. And what we want to do, let's see, how should we teach this? What we're going to do is we're going to keep our incrementation program, right? But I want it to where every time that we're on an odd number, it just says odd sauce. And then when we go to an even number, it says even sauce. So it would be 2 even sauce, 3 odd sauce, 4 even sauce, 5 odd sauce. Just so we know that our program can determine between even and odd. So let's hop back into our button here. And we have our code from earlier in the video when we allowed it to increment. So what we're going to do here is we're going to define a new string. We're just going to call it E-O, capital O, lowercase. That looks weird. EVN or odd. Alright. String even or odd. We can just declare that there. We don't need to define anything right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to increment our x. Then after that, we're going to have an if statement. And in this if statement, we're going to say if x mod 2 equals 0, even or odd equals even. And for those of you unfamiliar with this symbol here, this is a modulus. So basically what it's doing is it's dividing x by 2, but it's not going to give you that number. It's going to give you what's left over. So for instance, 15 mod 7 is going to give you 1, because 7 goes into 15 twice with 1 left over. So if mod 2 returns 0, so that means if you divide the number by 2 and there's nothing left over, that means you have an even number. So if x mod 2 equals 0, it's even, so even or odd should be equal to even. And then we can just say else. We don't need to do an else if, because a number can only be even or odd. An integer can only be even or odd. So we'll do else, and then all we have to do here is within here we say even or odd equals odd. We can spell odd right. So now in our text we want to be able to display if it's even or odd. So we'll do the number plus a space plus even or odd plus the other space plus the word sauce. Now if we go in here, go ahead and start more sauce, 1 odd sauce, 2 even sauce, 3 odd sauce, 4 even sauce. Looks like it's working. So that is your basic intro into if statements and else statements. They're just checking conditions and doing something else based upon what the condition is met.